I guess it's probably best if I start from the very beginning. My name, though not important, is Joey. Last year I was lucky enough to be able to get into the Disney College program. If you aren't familiar, that's when you basically get credits for working at Disney World. When I found out I was invited to the program, I was ecstatic. Even though I would leave all my friends, I figured it would be for the best. Admittedly, I had been partying a little too often lately and pushing off my schoolwork, so this could have been a good opportunity for me. After a very extensive going-away party, I was on a plane flying cross-country to my new home. Well, for the next 6 months at least. I was assigned to a bunk room of sorts and given my job. I was to work on the Haunted Mansion ride in the Magic Kingdom. This was pretty exciting news to me. I've always loved spooky paranormal things, and I know this ride was geared towards children, but still, it seemed pretty interesting. I got my hours and I was ready to start. The first couple of weeks were kinda slow, being as it was my first time doing the program. You don't get to go in the busy summer season. However, it was Disney World, so obviously it was still a fairly busy place. I was getting pretty close with some of my co-workers, Eli, Mika, and Emily especially. We hung out almost every day before and after work, and if we were lucky enough to have the same days off, we would spend them together. Eli and Mika shortly after started dating, leaving Emily and I alone together a lot. Once two people became official, it tends to pry them away from friends. One night the four of us had worked together. Em and I finally got them to hang out with us after our shifts. We were going to play some cards and have a few drinks. The shift went by with little to no trouble. A few guests complaining some of the ghosts at the last dinner party scene were too scary for the kids. We politely had to apologize. You find yourself saying sorry a lot in this job. They all kept complaining about the lady crying and the bloody dress by the fireplace. That struck me as odd. I have been on the ride and walked through the ride countless times. Never did I see said woman. I brushed it off. The shift ended with throbbing feet. It's funny, I'm not an athlete by any means, but I was not lazy at all. I would skateboard every day, hike all the time, play sports whenever I had the chance, but my feet still hurt from walking on that moving walkway for 8 to 12 hours a day. I showered and went back to my room. My friends were waiting for me. Eli was watching TV. I remember it clear as day. The Bruins were playing the Avalanche. Him being from Colorado and me from just outside Boston, we had some choice words for each other. The girls had their girl talk while we kept drinking and yelling at each other. When the game was over, we were all good and drunk, so the cards were never even opened. We did what drunk kids do. We talked. It wasn't long before someone brought up the weird complaints made today. I wanted to bring it up myself, but Mika did first. Eli, being the one who worked there the longest, suddenly became very serious. Let's not get into that. Just forget it, he said. His tone seemed stern. It made no sense because he was so laid back. What's your problem? Mika asked him. She also saw the change in his demeanor. It's just, once you know you can't go back, he said, looking down and shaking his head. I still wish I didn't know. Guys, let's just leave it alone, I suggested, totally planning on making him tell me when we were alone. No, I want to hear, Emily said. Mika agreed, so it looked like Eli was gonna crack. There's a legend, I guess you would call it. Have you ever heard of the Jesswoods around? He asked us. I mean, I've heard the name, but no specifics, I admitted. The girls agreed. They are a very, very wealthy family that was in business with Disney World in the early 80s. The daughter's name was Isabel Jesswood, he continued. Emily interjected. Oh, I have heard that name for sure, she exclaimed. Well, she was about to be married, right here in Disney, to a man whose name honestly escapes me. However, the week before it was found out that he was a con artist, he never really loved her. He was already engaged to another woman, in fact, and he was just in it for the money. My God, that is awful, Mika said while pouring another drink. When she found out, she was destroyed to the point of no return. Their favorite ride in the park was the Haunted Mansion, so towards the end of the night, she put on her wedding dress and got on the ride. After downing 2 bottles of antidepressants and a bottle of Jack, she was dead before the ride even ended. He finished and took a shot of Jameson. "Shut the heck up," Emily said. "You're so full of shit." "Yeah, man, I have to admit, you had me for a second." "Babe, I had no idea you were so creative." Mika kissed him. "I wish I was joking. You see, now that you know, you'll feel it. You'll hear it. She knows you know now." After that, we all kind of just moved on. It wasn't right away. Maybe 2 or 3 shifts later, I hear it. A slight cry, like a sob. I was working the exit of the ride alone, which isn't unusual for a Tuesday night off the season. I checked the camera to make sure a kid hadn't gotten out of their seat, which was rare, but not unheard of. Nothing. Not a single person. There hadn't been a person in the last half hour at least anyway. I walked along the path to the emergency exit just to make sure the cam wasn't missing anything. The whole time, hearing the cry. Again, nothing. Suddenly, I felt wrong, like the feeling you get when you know someone is watching you. That weight, the most uncomfortable, almost indescribable feeling. I walked, embarrassingly, a lot faster than I would like to admit, back to my post, and counted down the seconds until I could leave. This would happen sporadically, but nothing more than the cry and the feeling. I decided I would ask my friends about it. They too had been hearing it. Emily was the worst. She swore nothing had been following her. It got to the point where I would sleep over at her place just so she could sleep in general. This horrifying event brought her and I closer and closer. She would wake up every morning at 3 a.m. sharp, drenched in sweat and gasping for air. I would calm her down and get back to bed. This went on for a few months. I started having the same nightmares she was having. I dreamt about the ride and being paralyzed in the seat, not able to move at all. But the ride wasn't the funny, cute kids' ride anymore. It was a scene of pure horror and violence. A massacre, ending with a woman dead in the seat next to me. I was determined to find out what was going on, so one night on a day off, I called Eli. We were going to go out to the bar. We sat in a booth and ordered our beers. "Jesus, man, you look terrible," he said to me. "I haven't been sleeping well, if I'm being honest, dude. That whole Jesswood story has Emily and I pretty shaken up." He frowned. "Yeah, Mika too. I wasn't completely truthful with you." He grabbed his beer and took a sip, slamming it back on the table. I'm not sure if it was the sleep deprivation, the heat, the beers, or all of the above, but as soon as he said that, I had a flash of anger and pictured myself jumping across the table and wrapping my hands around his throat. Well, now is the chance, I guess. I passed her to you guys. He ordered us more beers and a round of shots. She was stalking me. I had just learned of her a few years ago. That's what she does. She stalks the people who have just learned about her. The drinks were delivered. He took a shot and slid mine to me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We took the shots. All you have to do is tell someone else the story and this will all go away. She will move on to whomever you tell it to. You son of a bitch. I grabbed his shirt and gave him a solid right hook across the table. He didn't even try and fight back. How could you do that to us? To Mika, your girlfriend! I threw him back to his seat. I was drunk. I didn't know any of this would happen. You guys made me tell you. He tried to justify his actions. I'm sorry, Joey. I truly am. But this is your issue now. It took all I had to not beat him up into the ground, but I got up and went to tell Emily and Mika the whole story. When I did, they immediately believed me, so we decided we needed to tell someone and fast. Have you heard the story of Isabel Jesswood? You should really stay away from the haunted mansion.